Well, let's try to make a little more sense of this now with Hayder al-Khoei, a fellow in the Middle East at Chatham House, and Robin Yassin-Kassab, journalist and author of The Road from Damascus. I suppose all bets are really off now, aren't they, in the Middle East?
Well, actually, it's a good sign now that the West is seriously considering talking with Iran, specifically on the Iraqi file. The Americans and the Iranians share strategic interests in Iraq. They both support the democratic process. They both support the Iraqi government. And I think they also share a common enemy in ISIS. So the recent developments are encouraging, I think, and will also open up discussions over the nuclear file and broader Middle East.
It's a funny situation, though, isn't it, when Iran is a potential ally in Iraq and a continuing enemy in Syria?
Well, if it's an enemy in Syria, I think the West is very confused at the moment about what it's doing. I don't think that there should have been sanctions on Iran in the first place, but it does seem very upsetting that there's a rapprochement with Iran at this moment when we have this problem with ISIS, which to a large extent has been caused indirectly by Iranian policy, both in Syria, where Iran has got militias on the ground and it's supporting the regime which is slaughtering the people, and in Iraq itself, where it's encouraged the most sectarian instincts of the Maliki government, and it hasn't. What we've seen in Iraq is not the success of ISIS, which is a weak group, it's the failure of the Iraqi state and, of course, the collapse of the Syrian state. And Iran, along with other countries too, but Iran is very complicit in that collapse in both countries. So I think it would be, in the short term, maybe beneficial to deal with Iran. I can see why people want to, because Iran has an organized military and it's an organized country, and they can go in, they could establish order if they wanted to in Iraq. In the medium and long term, it's a disaster, because Sunni Arab communities are going to be more enraged and become, maybe the sectarian backlash, which has been over-exaggerated, will become bigger if they see Iran walking over Syrian and Iraqi sovereignty.
I don't think it's fair to compare Syria with Iraq. The Prime Minister in Iraq, unlike with Syria, isn't a dictator who has inherited power from his father. He's there because of a democratic process. And I think it's unfair to paint ISIS as just Sunni. ISIS are extremist, jihadist Salafis, not Sunnis. In Iraq, they're also killing Sunnis as well as killing Shias.
Absolutely.
And I think this uneasy relationship between ISIS and other insurgent groups is not going to last forever. They are strange bedfellows, and it is a marriage of convenience. And I think in the coming weeks, we are going to see Syria-like infighting between the rebels. So you're going to have extremist Sunnis, moderate Sunnis, Ba'athist insurgents, who are all going to be fighting each other at the same time as fighting the Iraqi government.
Yes, I agree. It's important to stress something that people don't often realise, that since January, it was a grey area in Syria which side ISIS was on. Since January, there's no excuse for that greyness, because all of the Syrian opposition groups, the Free Syrian Army, the Islamic Front, even Jabhat al-Nusra, the Victory Front, which is al-Qaeda linked, it is an extremist jihadist group, all of these groups have been fighting against ISIS. So ISIS is a common enemy of everybody, it seems, but it's been helping Bashar al-Assad, really. But
that means that President Assad is on the same side as much of the West.
In fighting ISIS?
Yes.
Well, he's producing the chaos in which ISIS thrives. Whenever he's been following a scorched earth policy in Syria, any part of the country which he can't control, he's been devastating from aerial bombardment and other means, sieges and so on. That means that there are massive refugee flow out of the country. It means that there are no schools, no hospitals working, no economy going. Into this chaos, it's very easy for and sometimes with the help of neighbouring states, we were talking about Turkey earlier, it's very easy for international jihad tourists, psychopaths and nihilists to come in. They came into Mali, they were in Iraq before, and then the people drove them out. It's got so strained in Iraq that they've now been able to come back in. These people come wherever there's a chaos. Bashar al-Assad has created a chaos in Syria by committing a near genocide and a massive ethnic cleansing. This revolution in Syria started, and for many people continues, as a revolution for democracy and freedom of expression. It was remarkable that in Syria it wasn't sectarian for the whole of 2011, and then under the strain of Assad's war, it began to become on the edge of sectarian.
There can be no question that Assad created the chaos, but ISIS today is a monster of its own. There is a seemingly endless supply of funds coming from Western allies, money coming from Saudi Arabia, coming from Qatar, and coming from
private donors,
Kuwait, from private donors, which the government are doing very little to combat.
I agree.
And one viable policy of the West, if it doesn't want to get engaged militarily in Syria, is to do more to stop its allies, to do more to pressure its allies to stop ISIS getting funds from these private donors.
I agree, absolutely. I think that's very important too. But I think making a deal with Iran is the wrong idea. Certainly make the Saudis or pressure the Saudis and other Gulf countries, the UAE, the Kuwait, make them pressure these private donors who may very often be important people to stop donating. They're not helping the Syrians. The Syrians, even the Syrian Islamists, don't want these ISIS people there. They're obviously not helping the Iraqis. They're confusing the issue and actually making it more difficult for Sunni Arabs to get their rights.
Leaving Syria to one side, in Iraq, the Iranians are reality on the ground. And if the West seriously wants to combat ISIS, I think it's about time they start talking with the Iranians on Iraq.
I'm happy to see Obama saying that he's not going to take action until Malki changes his approach to the Sunni Arab issue. And I hope that he's also leaning on the Iranians. OK, we need your military security help to face this monster which has just exploded. But the reason this monster has exploded is because of the sectarianism of the, you're quite right, democratically elected Iraqi government, and because of the genocide going on in Syria, which Iran is supporting, which is radicalizing Sunni opinion around the world.
All I want to add is it takes two to tango. Iran isn't operating out of a vacuum in Iraq. There are the Turks, the Saudis, the Qataris, other Arab states. They are all engaged in Iraq and involved nefariously in domestic Iraqi affairs.
Absolutely.
Thank you both very much. Thank you.